Welcome to a brand new episode of the Michele Tafoya podcast. It is Wildcard Wednesday. We're going to be all over the map, but we're kind of honing in on one spot on that map, and you'll get it in a second. In the meantime, please hit that subscribe button. We want you to be with us for every single episode. We've got great guests coming up. So many fun things going on. Just click subscribe. Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Rumble, wherever you get your podcast. Join us every single day. We're going to start off with, I don't know if many of you saw this live, but a couple big things happened on Tuesday, yesterday. One of them was that the state of Utah laid out its case against this, and I don't even really want to say the kid's name because I just don't want people remembering his name. Let's just put it this way, and it might be in this piece of sound. The Charlie Kirk assassination suspect, the alleged assassin, we have to say that journalistically alleged because he hasn't been found guilty yet. But this guy, Jeff Gray, who's the Utah County District Attorney, finally laid out the case today. And I think in doing so, he put a lot out there because people have been making all kinds of claims, and there are conspiracy theories about how what side this guy aligns with, and what evidence they have, what they don't have. So Jeff Gray laid it out there today. I'm not going to play the whole thing for you, but I'm going to play this part. Let's roll it, Misty.
Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son.
Okay, here's why I think what he laid out is so important. He's made it very clear this was a political targeting event. This shooter attacked Charlie Kirk because of a difference in political beliefs. There's plenty of evidence, and this went on for a long time. This district attorney laid out a lot of facts in this case, and some people are saying, "Uh-oh, that means they're going to have to move the trial because so many people are going to hear all this and they're going to look into it." And regardless, if they move the trial, I think there's so much evidence, and he laid a lot of it out there. Now, part of that, too, is because so many people were trying to say, oh, this guy's MAGA, this shooter, he's MAGA, Kirk wasn't conservative enough for him, yada, yada, yada. This kind of stuff this conversation becomes so damaging. I mean, first of all, this shooter, I think in order to take up arms and shoot at your political opponent, you've got to be a little mentally unstable, unhinged, right? Although there are polls showing now that a growing number, particularly of younger people, like Gen Z, think it's okay that political violence, that violence is okay toward your political opponent. So there is this growing ideology of, you know what? We don't like him, take him out. I mean, Elon Musk had to beef up his security big time. We saw the president get 2 assassination attempts levied against him. And yes, we've seen it on both sides, but these political differences cannot be, this is what's so ironic about this. I don't know if ironic's the right word. So disgusting about this is if there was ever someone who said, I'm going to sit here and let you hurl all kinds of stuff at me, and then I'm going to try to civilly debate you over our political differences. Whether we end up agreeing or not doesn't matter. I want to show you what it looks like. It was Charlie Kirk. So that was a long way around towards saying this shooter, mentally unstable, also really heard what he wanted to hear. And this has happened a lot. And thank goodness there have been a lot of people online debunking all of these lies about Charlie Kirk. A former NFL player said that Charlie Kirk called an Asian the C word. Think of the slur that is toward a Chinese person. Well, that's not true. Charlie Kirk was talking to a guy named Cenk, and I can't remember his last name, but he's a podcast host. He's a really out there podcast host, but that's his name, Cenk. I want to say Uyghur. Regardless, his first name is Cenk, C-E-N-K. So no, Charlie Kirk didn't call anyone the C word. And if he had bothered to look at the person that Charlie was talking to, he would see he's not Chinese. I think he's, again, I'll stop there because I don't know for sure. What is he, Turkish? Okay, thank you, Misty. Misty there to save me again. Okay, so that was a big piece of news. What I decided not to play for you today was the audio of the shooter, who was then, he made his first court appearance. And by the way, he was dressed in what they call a suicide jumper or a suicide smock, which is basically he has none of his own clothing on, no t-shirt, nothing that he could wrap around his neck. They've got this kid under, and I say he's a kid because he is, even though he's an adult, under really close surveillance. They don't want him committing suicide. And I'll tell you, in a bizarre way, however you want to interpret this, I'm so glad this guy's still alive that we get to really dig into his motivations and reveal to the world what kind of hatred really is out there, as if you haven't seen enough already. Now, a lot of what's going on out there on the internet is often called hate speech. And Pam Bondi said something in an interview, I believe it was recorded yesterday, or a couple of days ago. She said something about hate speech in this interview, and I want to play it because she was really held to account by her own party for this. Because no matter how much you dislike what someone says, they still get to say it. But Pam Bondi came out and she was being interviewed on a podcast, and she said this, roll it.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Okay, the problem with that, with all due respect to Pam Bondi, because she works very hard, is that hate speech, you can't target someone for hate speech. It's protected speech. Even Charlie Kirk said, and I'll read this to you. This was posted because it's important. He said, hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. Keep America free. So he is right, and she was wrong. And to underscore that she was wrong, she actually had to come out and kind of do a little mea culpa. What she did was she did a cleanup on aisle 9. And Pam Bondi posted this long post later in the day. I want to be fair. She did this late Tuesday. She posted, hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. It's a crime. For far too long, we've watched the radical left normalize threats, call for assassinations, and cheer on political violence. That era is over. Under 18 U.S.C. 875C, it is a federal crime to transmit, quote, any communication containing any threat to kidnap any person or any threat to injure the person or another. Likewise, 18 U.S.C. Section 876 and 18 U.S.C. Section 115 make it a felony to threaten public officials, members of Congress, or their families. You cannot call for someone's murder. You cannot swat a member of Congress. You cannot dox a conservative family and think it will be brushed off as quote unquote free speech. These acts are punishable crimes, and every single threat will be met with the full force of the law. Free speech protects ideas, debate, even dissent, but it does not and will never protect violence. It is clear this violent rhetoric is designed to silence others from voicing conservative ideals. We will never be silenced, not for our families, not for our freedoms, and never for Charlie. His legacy will not be erased by fear or intimidation. Basically, she had to clear that up. It's a different thing to act and to dox, meaning expose someone where they live, put them in danger. That's something entirely different. Speech is just words. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. But for a long time, the left has been telling us that words are violence and that silence is violence. No, just as you cannot infringe on speech, you cannot compel speech. So if someone wants to stay out of the fray, they're allowed to do that. I'm sure someone's going to find a tiny little example of where I'm wrong there, but let's remember what violence really is, folks. It's a physical action. Words are words. More speech is always better. Now, here's the next caveat, and this is important, and I'm going to tell you what it is in just a second. But first, because there's a major caveat to what I just said. I'm going to get to that. But have you noticed that football's back? Oh, there have been some really good and kind of some stinker games, but tailgating's back too. So whether it's Friday Night Lights at your favorite high school or Saturday college or pro Sundays, Solaire tailgate infrared grills set up fast and heat up quickly, only 3 minutes to searing hot temperatures, just like the big backyard Solaires. Listen, I have one of these. It is phenomenal. It is a great thing to take to a tailgate. A Solaire grill will make you the master of the tailgate with the juiciest, most flavorful food in the parking lot. And the fast grilling times leave you a lot more time to enjoy the pregame festivities. They also cool down really fast, so there's not this, I got to get to the game. The grill is still too hot. You won't miss a minute of anything. The USA-made Solaire Anywhere, Everywhere, and All About infrared grills are portable and perfect for any grilling on the go, from picnics to camping, RVs to boating, but especially tailgating. Amaze your tailgating friends with the great food you grill with your Solaire infrared grill. Learn more about these fantastic grills and Solaire's try before you buy demo rental program at besthotgrill.com. 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 Check them out. The Chicago Bears need to get a grill. They need something to get cooking. The Vikings weren't much better, but okay. Here is the caveat on what I just said. So there needs to be more speech. But in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, we have heard some really disgusting speech. Now, that is protected speech. You cannot go to jail. You cannot be put on house arrest. Unless it crosses that line into what Pam Bondi was talking about, where you're expressing this, you're promoting violence or inciting some sort of violence, like let's meet at the corner of 27th and Oak and everyone bring your torch. That's probably not protected speech. But the other kind of speech that is protected, unfortunately, it can get really ugly, but there are consequences for it in many cases. I don't want my kids' school teachers to go railing on like this teacher in Canada who apparently showed the video of Charlie Kirk's assassination to her 5th and 6th graders again and again, and then told them why it was okay to shoot Charlie Kirk. Do you really want your school kids in that kind of environment? Particularly if your tax dollars are paying for it. All right, so let's go to Scott Jennings. CNN, we're very happy to have him as part of the Salem family. But he's also a CNN political analyst. He was talking about this, about people celebrating. It's just celebrating someone's death. It's one thing to celebrate Osama bin Laden's death, right? But Charlie Kirk? Oh my gosh. Let's roll Scott Jennings.
Yeah, look, I think when someone is murdered, particularly for those of us who are political actors and we're in the political system, when someone's murdered, and for whatever reason, I don't know exactly what the motivations were of the guy in Minnesota. It sounds like he had some mental problems. But whatever, it doesn't really matter. We should say, this is wrong. People should not be murdered. People who are in public service should not have to fear being murdered. And people like Charlie Kirk, who were doing nothing more than engaging in what we always say we should do, talk to each other and engage in civil discourse, they should not have to fear violent reprisals. That's what everyone should say. But in the case of these people who are being fired from their jobs, I mean, we're kind of tiptoeing around it here, but, I can read some of them out loud if you want. These people were not online saying, well, I disagree with Charlie Kirk. They were online saying the world is better off without him. They were online saying, his wife, in this case, she's a sick F word for marrying him. I don't care about her feelings. We're better off living in a world without a disgusting psychopath. That's who we're talking about here. And I'll tell you one more thing that's on my mind tonight, and conservatives everywhere. The idea that people are saying, well, he was an extremist, or he was a racist, or he was a Nazi, or a misogynist, whatever. Therefore, we could get around to rationalizing it. Charlie Kirk was a mainstream conservative Republican. He had views that are held by tens of millions of people, including more than half the country in the last election. So if you're online saying this is justified, what you're actually saying is half the country I live in, there's some justification to commit violence or murder against them. And that's what is concerning about the people who were doing this. And that's why I don't think anybody is losing any sleep about these folks not being able to teach our children.
He specifies the educators. There were so many. And all different levels, like, K through 12, high school, college, and administrators. I mean, and many of them are paying the price. You know why? You don't represent the values of the school that you're at. And you're advocating murder. And I think Scott Jennings touched on something that really I've been trying to express lately. And that is when Charlie Kirk got murdered, assassinated in cold blood right there in front of all of these kids who wanted to hear the debate that he was going to engage in. It felt like someone took aim at a lot of people. Like Charlie Kirk was loved by a lot of people. And when they took him out, it was like saying, you're all scum, you all deserve to die. I think that's what it felt like for a lot of people. So then when you amplify this, you take it one step further and you celebrate it and you suggest that he is an extremist or a hateful person. By the way, so much of what he's been saying over the years has been taken out of context. Or some of it is from years ago when he was more of a provocateur, and now he's been, just on a mission of a completely different kind. It's been amazing to me, absolutely astonishing to me, that people have said things, that some of the things that you just heard from Scott Jennings, and there has been tons of it. And I'm going to encourage you at this point just to stay away from it. Stay away from it, because it will, your blood will boil, and you don't want to be there. I've been doing a lot of it and I'm exhausted. Okay. So the consequences for free speech in America, free speech, no, it doesn't mean you go to jail if you say something hateful or bad, but you might lose your job. I want you to listen to Becky Weiss. I think I've played sound from her before. I'm really starting to like this gal. She talks about the difference between freedom of speech and freedom of consequence. Roll it.
I actually think it's super fun how, they celebrated whenever people would get fired for using the wrong pronouns. They loved it. They thought it was just. They thought it was great. They loved it. And now they're upset and confused as to why people are getting fired for celebrating an assassination. And don't even get me wrong here. I believe in freedom of speech, 100%. But freedom of speech does not equal freedom of consequence. That's the part they seem to be missing. You demand consequence whenever someone uses the wrong pronouns, but you act confused when there are consequences when people are literally celebrating someone's murder. Oh, to summarize, no, I don't care at all that people are losing their jobs. You cheer for it and you call it justice when it suits you, and then you call it oppression when it doesn't suit you.
Spot on. You know, something just came to my mind. When O.J. Simpson died, a lot of people celebrated. But see, he wasn't murdered. O.J. Simpson died of disease, natural causes, whatever, coalesced at that moment to take him out. He was unhealthy. He died. People celebrated. But you know why? Because he was a murderer. So Charlie Kirk never hurt anyone. He was never violent. And you can argue all your silly arguments about what you didn't like about what he said, but Charlie Kirk was not evil. So I like Becky Weiss. Maybe we'll have her on the show sometime. All right, before we go any further, I've spent nearly 30 years on the sidelines. NFL, NBA, Olympic sports, great time. But I've learned that real expertise comes from consistency, not from guesswork, not from luck. And that's why I'm excited to team up with Sports Corner Daily. Their free daily picks keep cashing with analysis so clear even a casual fan can cash in. And with the NFL and all the big college matchups happening now, there's no better time to get in on the action. Now, my listeners get 2 expert picks delivered free every single day. So here's what you do. Text the word BETS, BETS, to 844-759-0281, 844-759-0281, or visit sportsdailypick.com. Sportsdailypick.com. You can sign up in seconds. There's no cost, no risk, just smart winning insights. So again, text BETS to 844-759-0281 or head to sportsdailypick.com. Don't wait. Kick off the season on the winning side. All right, I talked about people building up arguments online because they've heard all of this stuff about Charlie Kirk being this or that, homophobic, transphobic, all the usual words that they throw at every single conservative, every single one, xenophobe, transphobe, you name it. We're all phobics. But this guy named Dejan, and he is, I don't have his last name, but he put this out today and someone reposted it. And I think it's really important to hear the whole thing. It's only a couple minutes long. Listen to this young man speak. Roll it.
I told myself that I was going to wait to address it thoroughly until I was more clear-minded, until I wasn't as emotionally driven. But quite honestly, I don't think that'll ever be the case. Ever since that day, I feel different. And you can say that's selfish, you can say that's inconsistent, so be it. It's the way I feel. But the way I feel isn't really what matters. What really matters is the truth. And the truth is that these people are evil. You can have your conspiracies about what actually transpired. You can have your think pieces about who exactly did it, who they did it with, who they did it for. But all I needed to see were the reactions. All I needed to see were the celebrations, the out of context quotes to fuel justification, the celebrations of a wife, a daughter, and a son having to see that. The reactions to a man who, whether it made him look good or it made him look bad, still promoted open and honest dialogue either way. That was all I needed to know, that if they had the chance, no matter what the actual motive was, they would have used their reasons to do the exact same thing. I said it before when it seemed like I was in the minority. I said it again, and I'll say it another. These people have set a precedent that states, even if you aren't directly hurting anyone, if you have an opinion or benefit in any way that they believe is detrimental to their in-group's health or life, then you deserve to have yours taken. The bank that denies your loan, the doctor that refuses to do an abortion, the woman that refuses to bake a cake, the random 25-year-old with the wrong opinion about some forever war across the world, the college kid that decided it just wasn't worth the effort to actually boycott Starbucks. Where does it end? It doesn't end until the echo chamber is the only chamber. And whoever's in their way is simply the price they'll pay. That includes me, and that includes you. They called him a fascist. You don't know what fascism is. This man died behind giving you people opportunities to tell him to his face how much you disagree with him. And guess what? Now you no longer get to. So why are you celebrating? How is this a success? How is radicalizing the people that aren't willing to give you a chance to speak even more than they already were a success? It's a success because you people are demonic. And yes, if one of you is following me, that includes you too. For those with common sense, you may find yourself struggling with day-to-day conversations. You may find yourself struggling with your day-to-day content. They may seem meaningless. They may even seem dangerous. I've had those thoughts running through my mind as well. But now, more than ever, we need to think the opposite. You need to spread your word and the word as much as possible. I don't care if you got 2 followers. I don't care if you got 2 million. Make your voice heard and stand your ground. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk.
Boy, he really got going and it really got compelling. I applaud that kid. That takes guts for anyone to go, because, you know, in some cases you're preaching to the choir. In other cases, maybe you're riling up a group that, oh my gosh, what if I offend them? Good for you. Good for you. All right, I'm going to leave you with 2 more pieces. One, I've talked about the rot in academia, and I'm talking about it from, in some cases, preschool and kindergarten, and in some cases just up at the university, the ivory tower level. This is a young woman who's a student in North Carolina in college. She's a college senior. She's studying international public relations. And she had a textbook that had this particular chapter she was assigned to read. I'll just let her tell you the rest.
I might be getting canceled for this, but I'm kind of pissed off. Anyway, I'm a senior in college and I'm in international public relations, and I was told to read Chapter 8 this week of International Public Relations, Negotiating Culture, Identity, and Power. I'm reading, I just opened it up to Chapter 8 about 5 minutes ago. I've been sitting here in awe. Chapter 8 is titled Contested Identities Shifting Publics in a Globalized World. I'm going to read you what I just read and where I stopped. I think it's the second sentence, maybe the third. Identity may be one of the most contentious words of the new millennium. An internet search produces the following modifiers for identity: corporate, sexual, digital, public, racial, national, brand, and even Christian. A US-based white supremacist group. I'm pissed. So I would just like to say that as a Christian, if you're reading this and you're not a Christian and you're in college, I am not a white supremacist. So can we cancel these authors? Or are we going to cancel me?
The book stated that Christian identity was a U.S. white supremacist-based identity. That's in a college textbook. And believe me when I tell you, this gal notwithstanding, impressionable young people will say, oh, it's in a textbook, it must be true. They couldn't put it in a textbook if it weren't true, if it weren't fact. I'd love to see the citation of that sentence. Where did they come up with that? The book was published in 2007 originally. The authors are Patricia Ann Curtin and Thomas Kenneth Gaither. They are the co-authors. The book, Contested Identity Shifting Policies in a Globalized World. Actually, that was the chapter. International Public Relations, Negotiating Culture, Identity, and Power in a Globalized World. See, people think globalized means we're all the same, really. We're just really all the same. Can't we just all get along? No borders. Just go wherever you want, live wherever you want. And we're all the same. We all share the same values. No, we don't. We're finding out very quickly that here in America, we don't share the same values all the way across the board. And that is sad. And the political rhetoric has got to change. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me is that old song. So we all need to do our part. But if it's up to Chris Murphy of Connecticut, this moment is dark to you for a very different reason. Chris Murphy, such a normal, sounding guy. But then he says stuff like this.
The shooting of Charlie Kirk could have been a line in the sand for this country. It was a tragedy that could have led the whole country to come together to do whatever is necessary to confront and stamp out political violence. But President Trump, predictably, and his allies, they've chosen a different route, and we need to talk about the seriousness of what might be coming in this country. First, let's be clear. There have been attacks on both Democrats and Republicans. The attackers have been radicalized by both the right and the left. But Trump and his anti-democratic, small d, allies, they see an opportunity to exploit the murder of Charlie Kirk and use it as an excuse to destroy his political opposition. I want to show you some of the rhetoric that's been ramping up from Trump lieutenants. Here's Stephen Miller the other night.
We have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country that are fomenting violence. That was the last message that he sent me. You want us to live in fear? We will not live in fear, but you will live in exile.
And this is a post from Trump whisperer Laura Loomer. She says, incredibly, I want the right to be as devoted to locking up and silencing our political opponents as they pretend we are. And here's Trump himself talking about bringing charges against maybe the most significant of his political opponents, the Soros family, for doing nothing other than supporting political opposition to the president. Listen, it's all lies. Again, we've seen violence on both sides. Frankly, if we're counting, there actually is more violent radicalization happening on the right than on the left. But MAGA just sees this as an opportunity to do what they've always wanted to do, use the legal system that they control to destroy opposition to Trump so that he and his allies can rule uncontested. That's why they put sycophants rather than qualified law enforcement officials in charge of the Department of Justice and the FBI, so that when the moment came, they could just move to shut down Democratic groups or arrest or harass Democratic leaders. This is part of the totalitarian playbook. Leaders who want to destroy democracy, who want to stay in power forever, they paint their political opponents as terrorists or as instigators of violence, and then they use a legal system that they've rigged to destroy dissent. Now, I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm not, we need to mobilize and organize right now. If you're not part of a protest group, join one. If you have money to donate to groups that are protecting democracy, do it. The most aggressive moves yet to try to silence Trump's political opposition might be coming fast, and we need to be ready.
Okay, I was reacting throughout that because project much? Using lawfare? Painting your opponent as a terrorist? Oh my gosh, Chris Murphy. Did you just copy and paste everything that you guys have been doing to the right and kind of flip it around? Okay, also, this has been pointed out a number of times. Had this been a moment to seize upon and quell speech, do you think there would have been 3 million people in the streets in London that were supporting Charlie Kirk and supporting free speech? That was over the weekend. Do you think that would have happened? Do you think that if this was the moment to foment all kinds of divisiveness, that there would have just been prayer vigils all over the country? Prayer vigils. No, I haven't seen a riot. I haven't seen a protest. I haven't seen anyone using this. Now, yes, there have been consequences for people who have used the ugliest of words, people who are doctors and public officials and teachers who should be held to account, many of them supported by our tax dollars. So those people, there have been consequences, yeah, but they're not in jail. It's amazing to me, the hypocrisy. Oh, we better mobilize. And they're going after us. And Laura Loomer, the Trump whisperer. Oh my, please. You pick the most extreme human who has spent a little time with Trump, who I think has been dismissed from his circle. Give me a break. This is, I'll use the left's term, there were dog whistles everywhere in there. They're going to try to continue to paint the right as this super evil, totalitarian, dictatorship, Hitler-like Nazi group. Those are the words that keep getting us in trouble. And shame on Chris Murphy for using this as potentially a fundraiser. Oh, go join a protest group. You know, I haven't seen a single protest over Charlie Kirk's death. I've seen prayers. I've seen candlelight vigils. I've seen memorials. I've not seen a riot. I've not seen anything that resembles violence. And I'm mad right now. Because, look, you can listen to Chris Murphy and you can choose to agree with Chris Murphy. That's the beauty of free speech. It's out there. But Chris Murphy, when you say certain things, I'm going to respond, and hopefully so are a lot of other people. I'm not going to respond violently. I will never donate to your campaign. I'm not going to respond in any other way except with my words. And these are the words. You are a hypocrite. You are a hypocrite. And I haven't seen Trump fan the flames. All the rhetoric has been very even keeled. Charlie Kirk had a lot of friends in the administration. People are like, why did J.D. Vance fly out there? He didn't fly to Minnesota when Melissa Hortman was... Well, J.D. Vance was a very close personal friend of Charlie Kirk. And by the way, a body needed to be transported home from Utah to Arizona. So J.D. and Usha, the second lady, went to support their dear friend and fly the body home. This equivocation, it's on both sides. This is one of the worst murders I've ever seen. And by worst murders, that sounds so childish. What am I saying? What I mean by that is, when I saw it, and I didn't mean to see the video, just kind of auto-played on my X feed, I about threw my phone. I was shocked. I was horrified. And I know that so many people have seen it. And again, I saw a guy who didn't deserve this. Who does? So many thoughts, and my mind is going in a million directions. But Chris Murphy, just... Folks, if you want to reelect him, if he represents your thoughts, and if you really are going to buy into and take the bait from Chris Murphy that, it's all going to be bad now. It's getting darker. It could have been a unifying moment. Guess what, Chris? A lot of people have been unified over this. Have you not been paying attention? When someone like Jamie Lee Curtis out of Hollywood says, I don't like a lot of what Charlie said, but I am crying because I know he was a man of God with a family and a wife. When you get people from all walks of life saying, I'm done with the Democrat Party over these reactions, you may want to read the room. But they're not lighting fires. They're not turning over cars. They're not doing any of that crap. They're holding vigils. Chris Murphy, you look so benign, but you are such a hypocrite. I end every podcast saying, be brave, do good. Thank you for sitting through my little diatribe there. You were brave. You did good by listening to me. Now go out there and keep talking, keep inviting conversations, and do good. Let's not lower our standards collectively. Let's raise them. We'll see you next time. You can keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump.